This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, I shot the Albatross, but I did not shoot the Dramians.
Hello everyone, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show putting the humanities back into science fiction. I am Gep, and I'm joined as always by my friend and co-host Dr. Izex.
Hi.
And this week, I don't think the title of this episode is anything to do with the episode, even more so than usual.
Well, it's all about guilt.
Kind of. So the title of this episode is Albatross.
It's metaphorical. Metaphorical albatrosses.
As I went into a little bit at the end of last episode, it's probably pertaining to a nautical, like bad luck myth that if you shoot an albatross, it brings bad luck on your ship.
Indeed, though there may be a more concrete attachment there in the literary tradition. Some sort of the poetry but called the Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Never read it, but I have heard of it.
I've read parts of it because it's right in front of me, but but it's actually rather long, so we're not going to read that for today's episode because it's like, here's part 7 about hermit gods and things like that. And
Oof.
Yeah. Till noon we quietly sailed on, yet never a breeze did breathe. Slowly and smoothly with the ship moved onwards from beneath. And
I don't hear a lot of rhyming for a rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
not a really solid, bit of rhyming here. Sometimes there's solid rhyming over here.
I judge the classic poetry.
Do and do as in honeydew, or do as in to do.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm digressing
rhymes.
here.
Well, what are we actually going to talk about when we get into this? Anyway, this episode was written by Dario Finelli.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. As far as I can find, he has only ever worked on one other thing, which was a movie called Scorpio 70.
Yes.
Described, I feel quite profitably, as an uneven exploitation film.
That's about the vibe I got here. Yeah. It's probably a good thing we've never seen it.
Yeah, well, actually, I have seen parts of it, because I was looking up what in the world this thing is, and I found at least half of it is, like, on Vimeo, and I skimmed through, and it's like people on a boat, sex, sex, sex. This is me just, like, randomly clicking through the timeline. Then people on a boat, then sex.
So some sort of sex boat, or maybe even a make-love boat. Ho ho!
Uh-huh. Yeah, Sex Boat is the unaired nighttime sequel to Love Boat.
Apparently it was referenced by Shaft in 1971.
Really? Well, okay, it's more well-known than I thought it was.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that reference is, but that's just something I found as far as random factoids about it. So
Yeah, I've never actually seen Shaft. I should, and look out for the reference now.
there we go. So we have homework. Excellent.
Okay, this episode has, again, guest star. My God.
Yes.
It's Lou Scheimer again.
Mm-hmm.
The only other person who ever does voices on this show.
Well, they had a few more guest characters. They couldn't all be James Doohan, so, you know.
They have before, but anyway, this time is playing 2 of the aliens. The only 2 aliens who talk.
Now there's there's technically 3, I think, but yeah, I couldn't get the because James Doohan is actually voicing the other 2 aliens. So
Yeah, I guess there is one named Guard in the script.
maybe there's 4 because there's also the Supreme Prefect. But anyway, so that's all we got as far as like who's playing what now. So let's get going.
So the Enterprise has finished delivering medical supplies to a far-off non-Federation, probably, planet called Darimia.
Darimia. Let us go to Darimia. Steal their air. I mean, that's Duridia. Never mind.
the leader named Darmian. They all have Dar or something. They all start with D. It's weird.
Baba Debo.
And his army something dude, Commander Demos.
Demos.
They're there to thank the Enterprise crew. And you're like, okay, thank you so much. And then Kirk's about to leave. And they're like, wait, one more thing? We have a warrant for the arrest of Dr. McCoy.
What? The what now? Did he get drunk and get in a bar fight? Because we could probably explain that as, medicinal alcohol there, probably. So what's up?
So apparently, 19 years prior, McCoy was on this planet as part of a medical team giving inoculations to the local population. After he left, a massive plague hit, killing most of the population of their sister planet, Darmia 2.
Well, that's kind of awful. Why is this the first we're hearing about this?
Yeah, McCoy is immediately taken into custody. So yeah, 19 years, no one ever mentions this. I guess no one ever comes to this planet. They do say a couple of times they're out of communication range with Starfleet. So I suppose they're just too far away. But 19 years and you never bother telling anyone there was a plague. They show up past this other planet. Nobody mentions there was a plague. They deliver the stuff. No one mentions any of this. They are literally on their way out the door. Kirk has said, beam us up. And they go, oh, one more thing.
You're going to jail now. What? Now, I will, I guess, point out that they do technically have this all approved of by the Federation as well.
Yeah, it's approved. So why has no one ever heard of this?
Yes. Why did nobody bother to tell the Kirk and company? Or is this another example of someone trying to get the Kirk and the crew killed in some fashion?
So nobody, including the Darminians, have any expectation that there will be a fair trial.
Yes.
Their justice system is just crud. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we have a speedy justice system that's horribly unfair. And so, you got to be screwed over. We're not going to explicitly say you're going to be executed, but it's kind of maybe implied.
Yeah, nobody argues this. Kirk goes, I've heard of your justice system. It's a kangaroo court. And they go, yep, exactly.
Yeah, kangaroos are cool, aren't they? That's not what we mean. Kangaroos, they hop.
And McCoy is now in a depression spiral because he's like, but what if I did cause the plague? Oh my God.
That is maybe something to be really worried about, but there's also all this kind of other stuff that's already coming up here. It's like, yeah, there's something weird going on here, and none of this makes any sense.
Yeah. None of it makes any sense, and it continues to not. So Kirk's determined that he's going to actually find some evidence of what's going on. So he decides that he's going to take the ship and crew to Darmina 2 to investigate. Apparently, Demos can't have this for some reason.
Well, if their justice system, as terrible as it is proven to be, wrong about something, then they'll lose faith in their horrible justice system.
Yeah, they never go into why they don't want the crew to investigate this at all.
Well, maybe they just want revenge, and they don't know who to blame.
I had some idea, there's a conspiracy, they caused the plague, there's something going on. No.
It's not that complex.
So, Demos goes after the Enterprise in his little patrol ship, which is immediately detected, but Kirk decides to ignore it, since it's really too bad that they forgot to close the hangar doors, and it's really going to be their fault if the guy, docks in the ship and invades them.
So, make sure those doors aren't horribly left open, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Go open the doors, quick.
So, Demos lands in the hangar, because he's stupid.
Yes. Obvious trap is obvious.
And is immediately taken into custody as a stowaway by Kirk, who is waiting for him just outside.
Hey, what's up? I know you're looking to sneak on board and cause a ruckus and maybe sabotage some stuff. But let's just bypass all that, and you can become my prisoner.
How could you do this? You're a stowaway. It's I have been tricked.
They've defeated me with my own weird justice system logic here. Yes.
So they arrive at Darmia 2. There's apparently an aurora in the area that is putting out an intense, but luckily non-lethal radiation.
Well, it's just electrons, right?
I guess. So Spock gives an overview of what they're looking at, plague-wise. First symptom of the plague is that the skin changes pigmentation color. So it's blue, then red, then dead.
Wait a moment. Is this a good part to reference Short Circuit?
Sure.
All right. Stephanie, you change color. Okay, that was a very good reference, but I'm looking for a reason to put it in there.
I thought you were going to go with dead. What? Dead?
Disassemble. Do not disassemble Spock. Wait.
Short Circuit needs to get on our short list.
Yes.
So anyway, Vulcans are apparently immune to the plague, which is interesting, right?
That's convenient, yeah. Well, probably the green blood thing.
Of course, Spock beams down to the planet because he's immune to the plague. He's accompanied by Kirk and Deimos,
who are not immune to the plague.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of iffy. They don't say whether or not humans can be affected at this point, but Deimos definitely can.
Yes. At least one of these people is for certain, likely to get, dead if he gets it. So,
yeah, he's gonna get all plaguified. The planet looks like there was a war. There's ruined buildings everywhere. It's like, how recently you went outside after quarantine and the whole place was a nuclear wasteland, like that.
Yes. Your local supermarket, has giant holes in the roof and plastic tarps that have also been blown up open.
So a bandaged figure sees them and begins to run. They give chase and follow him into a cave where they are attacked by the crazed survivor.
But it's not really a survivor.
Well, they pull him off of Kirk, and Deimos says, they don't like Earthmen because of McCoy. Also, none of these guys are actually survivors. They just, came back and found all their loved ones dead and went crazy.
So, that's a weird thing to have happen.
But this guy, named Coltia, or Coltai, it's hard to remember.
Koltor! Wait, that's Star Wars. Never mind.
He says, nope, I am a survivor. I had this other disease, and McCoy treated me for it, and then I got the thing and was fine.
Okay, so I guess we have an in as far as, solving this plague thing. That's kind of cool. Let's remember this, for more than 10 seconds here, guys.
He also remembers McCoy and goes he saved my life. He wouldn't be able to kill anyone. They go, good enough for me, you're coming with us.
Hey, a character witness, it's, good enough for us, because, yeah.
McCoy saved my life. He wouldn't accidentally start a plague. That makes sense.
Yeah. This is all sort of a weird set of arguments they're going to be forming here.
It just kind of reminds me of somebody was telling me that someone was pressuring them to hang out before everyone was getting vaccinated. And come on, I'm your friend. I wouldn't give you the virus.
It's not how this works, people.
So Kirk brings the guy back on board with the hope of him testifying for McCoy when they get back to the other planet. As soon as they return to Darmia, they are, for some reason, forced to fly through the multicolored aurora thing. Unexplained why. It's just,
Yeah, the Enterprise is just used to flying through weird, space phenomena at this point. It's if our computer goes and starts doing practical jokes, we'll just trigger it again like we did last time.
It's one of those things. The captains have a pool. Okay, I got 5 energy clouds this week. Oh, you only got 4. You're out. What did yours do? Not take over the ship? Oh, boring. Yours just gave your crew cancer. Mine was playing practical jokes.
Yes, so mine's much more cool. Oh, yours possessed some random person? Oh, well, this one over here in this other ship that produced infested the whole crew except for the one, the captain who had to be strong jaw McSafe Day. So
yeah. Oh, Jenkins over here got magic space baby. That's bingo.
That's next generation plot.
So they're preparing to go back down to the planet when Spock notes that they may not actually be able to intervene in the trial because Koltai is turning blue.
Oh no, Koltai! Whatever shall we do?
So they immediately set up a quarantine. Good idea. Maybe we should have thought of this before.
Yes.
Kirk, Scotty, and Deimos also turned blue.
Yes. So maybe they should have thought about this before going to the plague planet.
So soon enough, everyone except Spock has the thing.
Yes, even Eric is no longer that weird orange color, but changing green as well. So
They need McCoy to come back and find an antidote for the plague. Why do they always call it an antidote?
I don't know. Maybe just in the future, they're really bad at medical science, except for McCoy, and McCoy just plays along. Like, yeah, they get it wrong all the time, everybody. But, I tried to correct them, but they just get upset, and so I stopped bothering.
But Darwin will not let their prisoner go so easily with no evidence, and everyone on the Enterprise is unable to give testimony on a point of dying.
Well, maybe we should just start beaming down, and then they'll get real extra, angry at us.
Yeah, then they'll have a really good reason to let him try to find a cure. So Spock, who cannot catch or spread the plague,
Convenient.
Goes to the planet, knocks out the guards, because conveniently they all have that nerve in their neck that Vulcans can use, and then brings McCoy back. He breaks him out. McCoy goes, "No, I'm too depressed. What if I did it? Leave me to die." He goes, "Come on, you idiot."
It's kind of an interesting exchange here because, Spock eventually gets around to, everyone on the ship has the plague, so let's come on. And they're like, oh, you should have said that earlier.
So McCoy's back in the ship working on a cure. He and McCoy are the only ones who can function at this point, so they're trying to find it with the help of the computer. The computer keeps not finding any matches of anything even resembling the symptoms of this plague. McCoy can't even get good readings because of the stupid Aurora. He says Aurora to himself and goes, "Of course, the Aurora." General random word association is the only way to do science.
Yes. Well, the closest thing I get for myself is more random mathematics association. Like, wait a moment, this looks like this function. But that's a little different.
McCoy tells Spock to enter the disease symptoms into the computer without the color change, because the color change is probably being caused as a side effect of the auroras.
So the color change has no association with the disease at all, I guess?
And without that, they find the disease immediately. So the computer can't even be like, well, I found a disease with every symptom but one.
Yeah.
Nope.
Not good enough. It has to be exact matches. Everything else is out.
But unfortunately, there's no known antidote.
Dun, dun, dun. Well, I guess we're screwed.
But wait, they have Kultai on board, and he survived the plague the first time. And McCoy's like, of course, I treated him for whatever virus before, and he still had the antibodies from that must have helped him cure this plague. So there we go. Just in time, we saved the crew. So
I guess he doesn't have the antibodies anymore because he's also dying here, but, got to get a, booster shot occasionally.
Yeah, that's fine. Booster. So McCoy is now given thanks by the planet for saving them from the plague and future plagues. And we can forget about that whole, we were going to execute you thing.
Now, McCoy, this is a great opportunity to say, so if I'm ever charged with something else, can I just get time served? Because I was in that cell for a while, guys. So I'm going to get a fist fight real quick.
So McCoy's back on the ship and is ready to get back to work. And Spock goes, yeah, you're behind on handing out your vitamins to the crew.
What? Spock, why are you being kind of a jerk face here?
Because they do this. Jokes, ha ha ha, into the episode. Yeah.
Yes, you're bad at being a doctor. Screw you, Spock. I'm going to be a good doctor.
Yeah, McCoy's like, oh, next time I'm imprisoned, just leave me to die rather than let this Vulcan save me.
I think this is also a bit where the animation has resulted in a little bit of a meme with Kirk kind of standing by watching this with his hand randomly face palming and things like that.
Yeah, I do not understand the weird askew mouth covering that they keep doing. Their hand isn't in a natural position, and then they just put their hand over their mouth and then just stand there for a second as a reaction. It's the only reaction they have at anything.
Yes. Well, your arms tends to be coming from off screen, so maybe it's somebody else's hand.
I just feel like, I cannot in any way recommend people watch this series. It is so not worth your time. I would say that you should look up at least bits and pieces because the quality of the animation is full on impossible to describe.
Yes. It's not quite surrealist here, but is unintentionally janky.
It hits Uncanny Valley so hard it comes back the other direction.
it kind of becomes awesome in a way.
It's like that is so not the way a person moves that it's more believable somehow.
So and add in the various mistakes, and we talked previously about like, we're here's a message from McCoy who's down in sickbay and also standing right behind me, sort of stuff there. And it just kind of becomes a bizarre experience to watch.
So I'll say, like, before I didn't know a lot about original series. I was aware of original series. I was vaguely aware of the cartoon. We started doing this. The frickin' our own personal plague hit partway through us doing this whole thing. Yeah. I did not realize that every other episode of original series is about a plague.
Yes. Plague. Space aliens plague.
It's just so weird. I didn't realize this, and it lined up in a bad way.
So, apologies to everybody for having more plague all the time here.
Yeah, just all plague all the time.
Star Trek, the plague years.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we're going to have more plagues like in TNG era as well.
Yeah, it's so weird.
Not as frequent, but
No one thought that we would have dealt with plagues by now.
Well, it was kind of one of those things where it was sort of one of those things people kept on saying, something like this is going to happen again, so we should maybe be prepared. And then it kind of happened.
In the far, far future.
Yeah, but people weren't expecting it to be, something that's now happened. So in their lifetimes, in fact. Whoops.
So anyway, there's not they weave in what seems like it should be interesting plot threads in here, but they're not. They're so not.
I think it's one of those cases where it really suffers from being only a half hour. I guess less technically, because there is beginnings of interesting things to explore here, but they don't really have time, and also they kind of start piling in other things as well. So it's sort of like, well, we could maybe explore the justice system of this planet a bit. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to explore the fallout of a massive plague that wiped out, almost everybody on a planet. Or maybe not. We'll just kind of skip on from that, and so on and so forth. And so we just had to have these set pieces and plot elements that are kind of crammed together. And it doesn't really form up a good solid whole. But I do say that the best part probably was actually McCoy sort of lamenting, what if I did do this? I don't have all the data in front of me, but I'm going to kind of feel guilty about this anyway because I don't know what the truth is. And that was, probably the heart of the episode, though it was still very much a minor part of it.
They set up that, which could be interesting. They set up the conspiracy thing, because it really seems like they're trying to cover up something that they're doing wrong with their sister planet. And then the fact that they still have a weird post-apocalyptic civilization living on their sister planet.
Yes. Apparently done nothing to try to reintegrate the people that returned to that planet after the plague back in their society or help them rebuild or anything like that. Maybe the conspiracy is that they're horrible managers of their colony, and so they're kind of trying to deflect blame, but they don't really explicitly go into that. So
the fact that no one's heard of this plague before now. So really, it's just, I don't know. They set up a bunch of plot threads and don't go anywhere, which they do a lot in this show. I just wanted to point that out, that there were interesting things to do here, but they didn't explore some of it. But there could have been a somewhat interesting moral idea in here, and McCoy kind of lamenting gets to this. But what if they had actually done that? What if a, supposedly, or at least trying to be, benevolent organization like the Federation went to a planet to give medical aid and wound up accidentally infecting them with something worse?
The good intentions, but, bad outcome situation.
This could happen. This could very conceivably happen with as much as they've talked about introduced disease and stuff. In fact, they sort of did this earlier with the Infinite Vulcan, where the humans who came to the plant people planet introduced a horrible plague that killed off all the plant people.
So it's something that they, have an in to talk about. And heck, if they wanted to like have continuity, they could have like mentioned that on this episode. But this is the animated series; we can't expect things like continuity.
Yeah, but even without continuity, like that's an interesting idea because there's definitely a weird, like a balancing act you have to try to do if you are trying to do something like arguably productive and good, like vaccinating or otherwise giving medical aid to people who, don't have it, but you could be doing harm at the same time. And there's a bit that you have to kind of balance out here. Are you doing enough good that the potential harm that you could do could be balanced out, or taking that risk is justified because the risk is fairly small where you have a guaranteed amount of help being done?
Time to calculate some risk profiles here and see how it goes. And if it's somewhere sort of in an ambiguous sort of zone, then then we can have a whole discussion about is this acceptable enough risk or not.
Now, the fact that they didn't tell anyone is a bit strange.
Yes.
Like, why didn't they tell anybody about this plague? If they had known, if they told anyone about the plague and they didn't send help, then they're pretty culpable. But doesn't seem like that's what's happening. Because as far as we know, no one knew about this plague until they arrested McCoy.
Yeah. Well, until they got a arrest warrant to arrest McCoy. Which I guess also maybe, begs some questions with, like, what... They apparently got this, and it's completely legit as far as Federation law is concerned to, extradition is fine, whatever. That the Federation is either well in the know about this plague at this point now, and thus should be sending some sort of aid beyond, I guess, the Enterprise and their now very late medical supplies, or alternatively, they have just sent this through on a very expedited sort of fashion, which might also imply that if there is a conspiracy, that someone in the Federation is in on it. But we don't go there.
No, why would you go there?
Conspiracy within the Federation to undermine some important, members of it, working with outside aliens to manipulate things to maybe, weaken the flagship or something like that. I wonder if we'll run into plots like that in the future.
Way too many, probably.
Yes. I guess to a certain extent, it's also the plot of Star Trek 6.
But overall, I guess we can't, necessarily go on about a moral dilemma that they didn't actually introduce.
Yeah, I guess we could maybe talk about, justice systems, though we don't really got much info about this one, maybe, so it'll be very much in the, all right, here's what a justice system looks like. I guess I got some stuff about Auroras if you want to talk about that.
Well, I guess I will say one thing before we get to science. That it is an interesting one that they show McCoy is immediately distraught that the possibility of this might even happen, because he might have done a massive deal of harm that he could have been indirectly responsible for. Everyone else just immediately goes no, just buck up, dude.
McCoy's like, no, I'm actually going to be a legit human being here and actually lament wait, maybe there was something I didn't, catch. Maybe I didn't spot. Mistakes can happen when it comes to medical science. And, maybe there, if I had all the information, maybe I could look back and figure out what I screwed up. But even still, if it was something that I did, then there's still all these people dead, and that's on me. And that's horrific.
We have such a cultural problem with accountability in these kinds of situations. If someone does something accidentally, if something like this happens that you had no or very little control over, and it was a complete accident, not your fault, you're not responsible, can't be held accountable for any of it, but you still were involved in causing a great deal of harm and feel bad about that, we don't have anything. We cannot help. Culturally, we think you're fine. We have two modes. Either you did something bad enough that we're going to punish you for it, or you didn't and you shouldn't feel bad about it. We're not allowed to have anything in between.
And so in situations like this, we're just not able to really kind of help people that are in that sort of position. There's the technical help of getting them out of prison, but, that's not really going to solve the emotional impact. unless there is for sure, evidence, presented that is going to be, it's like, no, this is not your fault at all. Just sort of something crappy that happened, in coincidence with it. But then you could still have the guilt of like, well, I was still there. I could have still maybe, looked at what was going on and spotted this before it happened. And so, it could just spur into a different sort of guilt there. It's like no longer my responsibility that it happened, but it's my responsibility that I didn't prevent it from happening.
But they still they sidestep it because, of course they do. Nothing bad actually happened. He wasn't involved at all. In fact, he was able to cure everyone and be happy with it.
Which I guess is a redemption option, which is also kind of awkward in ways because, you could still have an emotional sore spot even if you're able to sort of make up for it after, even in your own mind there.
But we still have this problem. Like I was reading a memoir a few weeks back about someone who was involved in a fatal car accident. Completely not his fault. Like, no, everyone agrees nothing that he could have possibly done to prevent this, but he still feels horrible about it most of the time. It's greatly affected his life, and he's tried to get help for it multiple times, and he's talked to other people in a similar situation. There's just nothing that anyone can do except for tell people they shouldn't feel bad. This is not something that mental health in this country is capable of addressing. Like, culturally, we just can't do anything for people in this situation because we just do not have the cultural context to deal with it. And I guess I don't have anything upbeat with this because, right now we're lacking the cultural ability to deal with anything in this situation because our current mode of even mental health care right now is just either nothing bad is happening and you're fine, or we can't deal with it. Like, there was even all those stories at the beginning of the COVID pandemic of how hard a time therapists were having dealing with this because something bad is actually happening, and so many therapists just spend all their time telling people that bad things aren't really happening in their lives.
And so that's not going to be really actually useful or helpful for anything. And, well, things still kind of suck, so...
Yeah, and I'm sorry to be such a down on this, but like, this is a major problem. We have a big hole in our like care system around anything like this that is not being addressed, and people aren't even really talking about it. Like, people are surprised to hear things like this.
Oh, I guess there is, I guess, maybe for a suggestion for our audience though is that it is maybe best to understand that these emotions do happen, and when things are going crazy and, you got, pandemics here and people are, dying, in massive numbers, it is okay to feel afraid. And, it's completely natural. And to try to, I guess, shut down this sort of emotion is not, not really healthy here. Understanding it is good. And, there are, of course, limits with, anything if, you dwell on something too much. But, to deny that these are things that are happening, these are, is a way to sort of try to prevent you from feeling like this. That's not going to be workable, in general there. So do take care of yourselves, and it's okay to feel stressed, sad, and angry about, stuff that's actually going on.
All right, so less depressing science talk.
All right, auroras. What are auroras, Skepwood?
Well, the only ones I know of are when charged particles of like solar radiation and junk get bent around the magnetic field and intersect with the atmosphere, causing pretty lights.
That's the short version, yes. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the structure of the electromagnetic environment throughout the solar system. So you got the sun. The sun has this very large magnetic field that is all weird and twisted, and because the sun's like all sorts of plasma going on there, and there's a lot of charged particles moving around, and this generates electric fields, magnetic fields, and a little of both there. And so you get this very, especially close to the sun, a very complicated electromagnetic environment. And so you got, solar flares, doing the whole arc things with the plasma going along the magnetic field loops, that connect back to the surface of the sun and things like that. But once you get a bit further out from the sun, things tend to be a bit more of a outward streamy sort of structure there, in part due to something called the solar wind. Solar wind is basically the totality of all the various charged particles that are being spewed out from the sun and high enough velocity to just sort of stream out into space. They, because of how magnetic fields interact with charged particles, aka if you have a current, you're going to get a magnetic field being generated around it. You're going to be, you're sort of, driving the magnetic field away from the sun to be more of a outward streaming sort of structure there. So the sun's magnetic field is, pushing out in a certain angle out from the sun, and it interacts with the Earth's magnetic field. Now, the Earth's magnetic field is a little bit closer to a bar magnet as far as its sort of general vibe there. While the sun is sort of like, we're just going to sort of have weird structures and fields coming out in any old direction. The Earth's one is more of the field comes out this end and goes in the other pole, and we're good to go, right? But the problem is when you have the sun's magnetic field plus the Earth's magnetic field, they sort of interact, and you got some superposition of the fields there, so you get sort of the sum total of the two, and so the magnetic field close to the sun is, sort of bunched up, while the field on the away from the sun is all stretched out, and you get sort of Earth's magnetotail there. And so you got these charged particles coming at the Earth, you got these interacting magnetic fields, and so you get a certain number of the certain amount of the charged particles from the solar wind start getting channeled down the into the Earth's magnetic field at the poles there, at those more open bits there, and so you get these streams of particles that come down and then hit the upper atmosphere, and so you get electrons now interacting with the upper atmosphere and creating a nice, pretty light show as they produce a little ionization here, some other effects here, and suddenly you got this sort of structure, this ring-like structure around the pole that is all a bit of a light show and things like that. And it's more than just visible light, but it's the main component that we remember about it. But there is also other sources besides just straight up solar wind. There's also are you familiar with the Van Allen radiation belts, Gepwin?
Oh, it sounds familiar. So
James Van Allen, who's a guy I actually technically met, a little bit of story there, but I can tell another time. These are bits of the Earth's magnetic field that tend to trap large amounts of charged particles, and sometimes when the sun starts having an active, moment there, or phase, or whatever, and there's a radical change in the sun's magnetic field because once again it's plasma, it's all getting effects there, and there's a lot of variability to it that's being sort of driven by its internal fusion process. That it can suddenly have a bit of a reconfiguration, and sometimes the field gets a lot weaker or a lot stronger. And suddenly how the sun's magnetic field is interacting with the Earth's magnetic field changes. So where the ideal spot for those radiation belts are and other sort of trapped particles in the Earth's magnetic field, where the ideal for the places for those particles to be is now suddenly different. Or alternatively, the trajectories of these particles in their trapped configuration before is no longer a configuration that is going to be ideal for the magnetic field as it is now. So I don't want to go too much into the exact math here, but long story short, there's certain trajectories that fit well with a certain magnetic field. But if you change the magnetic field, those trajectories can now send you out of your magnetic field configuration and suddenly stream down towards the Earth, and you also interact with the atmosphere. And so you get sort of, puffs of aurora kind of coming out from that as parts of the plasma environment around the Earth suddenly now being ejected into the atmosphere. So, yeah.
Oh, so you get like weird little mini auroras.
Yeah. And you get sort of blobs and circles here and there. And, there's all sorts of, weird stuff that can kind of happen there. And it's all, very fascinating and kind of all comes into the larger concept of space weather, which is actually like an umbrella term for all of this stuff. Because, having these charged particles fly around and do stuff can actually affect stuff here on Earth as well as in orbit. Like satellites and stuff can get sort of a bit, wonky with, suddenly satellites full of extra electrons. This might affect the electronics slightly.
Yeah, your TV used to go bad when you were having a bad solar flare day.
Yeah. And so, as well as, you're changing up, the plasma environment near the Earth, which can also affect communications. So, there is a number of frequencies that like to be used, bouncing off the magnetic, the plasma environment around the Earth in order to get over the horizon. But if that plasma environment is suddenly radically different, well, that can maybe make your signals get lost or, shorten your range or even extend your range, depending on what's going on here. And there's a lot of various effects there. And keeping a sort of track of this can help predict when there's going to be communications disruptions. Can also, help, sort out things like, radars and things like that. Because if you're doing an over-the-horizon radar situation, it'd be kind of nice to know that, what you're bouncing off of up in the sky is where you intend it to be. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to figure out the over-the-horizon part properly, and you could be massively off as far as what you're detecting and where you think it is. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. And none of this has to do with the plague.
So what is this giant multicolored space cloud that's emitting so much radiation? It makes people with a plague change color, but only people who have a specific virus.
I don't know. I guess maybe there is some very strange magnetic phenomena in this part of space or something like that, where there is effectively planetary dipole-like structures, and there's also some gas clouds nearby, and it's causing a similar effect to a planetary aurora? Maybe? But I don't know how that would ever be formed and sustained. So
yeah. And then there's so you turn blue and red. The only things I know of, at least in humans, that can do that to your skin pigmentation, too much silver. If you intake a lot of silver, like colloidal silver is a popular one, you can change your skin pigmentation can become slightly bluish. As far as I know, red is probably iron. If it's red, you can get sort of an orangey tinge from too much keratin, which if you eat way too many carrots.
Yes.
But it has to be way too many.
What about sunburns? And get some jaundice going on there.
Yeah, you could get sunburned, so it could just be a very quick sunburn.
Which I guess with the whole high energy electrons there, maybe it's a similar effect. Maybe I don't know.
Well, that one could at least make some sense because there's a decent amount of stuff that can make you more sun sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
You could become so sun sensitive that even the artificial lights on the ship give you a terrible sunburn.
That'd be kind of awful. You'd have to go live in the dark forever.
Which is maybe why they live in caves on that other planet.
Which could be an interesting thing to explore as well. It's like, yes, we figured out that being outside kills you if you're out there for too long, because then you'll just spontaneously generate plague. So, yeah. The science in this doesn't make a lot of sense, other than maybe the plague stuff, and that's really kind of also wrong as well, but that's also in universe.
Yeah. I mean, none of the science stuff makes sense. And then why did they send... I'm just sorry, but why did they send the immune guy, but also two other dudes down to the planet where they're definitely going to get the plague?
Because reasons!
No one's going to get the plague, it's fine.
It's all burned itself out. There's no retransmission or sleeper carriers or anything like that. It's all fine.
Yeah, don't worry. The plague tired itself out.
Plagues, viruses and things like that, the most successful ones tend to not totally wipe out a population. Instead, they tend to, have a population still that they can reproduce in. So, watch out for that, guys.
Yeah, otherwise the plague would just die out.
Yeah. And that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of its, reproducing massively. Yeah, so that's all the science talk I got for this week.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot. Like, we've already stretched it quite a bit for this episode.
Though I will, I guess, we have opportunities to maybe talk about the justice system, but that are being ridiculous. But we have plenty of opportunities in future Star Trek to also cover that with a bit more attachment to the actual episodes.
Yes, we can definitely talk about justice systems several times on.
Yeah, including completely ridiculous ones, like in that one episode where Wesley Crusher is apparently supposed to die.
Oh yeah, that one. That's fun.
Yes.
Got some things to say there.
Yes. Oh baby, that's a whole episode there.
But I think for now, it's probably time to move to the galaxy's favorite game show! Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome to the game show portion of the show. I hope you're feeling so beautiful today. You're all very colorful too. I wonder what's up with that. Oh. Our various contestants have been racking up all sorts of points here, and so it's time to start handing out the prizes for their, massive successes today, or alternatively massive failures, depending on what prizes we're handing out. Our first one is, in fact, one of those failures, the Medical Malpractice Prize, which goes to the Dramians for having years to research the mystery plague and its origins, but deciding correlation means causation, and, that's good enough instead. So it's always a McCoy's fault, totally, guys, really, for sure. What do they win, Gipwin?
They win some cool multicolored masks that we can just get them to wear. Like, we need to make this a new fashion thing. It really seems obvious that this is an airborne plague given how quick everyone on the ship gets it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we could have normalized masks at any point in here, people wouldn't get quite as sick.
Indeed. These funky-looking aliens here with their tentacles and all things, they could have some masks going on here, and it's like, yeah, we figured out how to defeat the plague. You should, wear masks, folks. It's easy. Even us weird alien guys can do it. Ho-ho! Our second prize is the Cat Burglar Prize, which goes to Demos for trying to sneak onto the Enterprise. You just do sometimes, I guess. Even if it was a super obvious trap. But what does he win, Gepwin?
He wins one of those cool sets of thieves' tools, because if you're going to get caught immediately, it's really embarrassing to just walk through a door. You should have at least lockpicked or had one of those ridiculous diamond circle cutter things. Just any of this. Just walking out the door, just opening the door and walking through. It's like, haha, you're caught. Like, you didn't even try.
Yes. You need the whole, suction cup and, thing going on there. Or, maybe at least a crowbar, maybe? Because, you got to force the door open, sort of. I don't know. But, yeah, he's not a very good cat burglar, but he did try. Our final prize today is the Too Snark is Logical Prize, which goes to super logical guy man Spock alien dude here, the Vulcan, for being super snarky at the end to McCoy for seemingly no good reason other than to get a rise out of him. What does he win, Gepwin?
He gets the book of 101 definitely human insults. Because eventually he's going to run out. He has to give one to McCoy every day. Just keep pushing. Just keep pushing.
Yeah, Spock, you'll finally get McCoy to admit that you are the master of humor on the ship. Someday. Take it away, Gepwood.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the contestants and everybody, for joining us here on the Galaxy's favorite game show! Woo!
So, do you like Mesoamerica?
I do. And in fact, this is one of those episodes that I've heard of for good reasons. I don't know how the episode itself stacks up, but the writer of the episode is very proud that he was able to actually write this thing and put some of his own native culture into an episode. And it was written by someone who knows some of this stuff and has, as far as I'm aware, the first Native American character in Star Trek.
What about that one planet where the Native Americans got kidnapped by aliens?
Did they do that in original series? Which one was? Oh yeah, that one. Those weren't. They weren't. I don't know. This guy's on the crew. It counts better.
Right. So an actual crew member. Excellent. Good.
Yeah.
So a little bit less ridiculous, a little bit more respectful. Excellent. Good.
So the next episode is called "How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth."
Well, how sharp is it?
It's apparently as sharp as a disappointing child. It's a Shakespeare reference.
Wait a moment. Shakespeare? Mayan culture? What's going on here?
Yeah, that probably isn't going to end well, is it? I do know the plot of this one just from having seen some interviews and stuff. Overall, I don't know what to make of it. It's pretty standard. We've seen stuff like this before, but it could be interesting. Maybe a different cultural thing.
I've bits and pieces of it in my head as well, but I've not seen it myself, so I guess we'll see how it rolls by next episode here.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on with giant alien snake gods. Next week on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, feathered serpents in space! You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.